Hi everyone, I'm going to be talking to you today about the new moon coming up in Cancer on the 25th of June and the second half of June in general. Now, I think we all know the astrology is incredibly potent this year because we are in a period of immense change, turbulence, and transformation. And on the 15th of June, and I mentioned this in the last video, but just as a reminder, I'm filming this actually on the 9th. I'm filming it a few days early for personal reasons, but on the 15th, we have two exact aspects which are quite powerful. That is the third square between Jupiter and Saturn, and the square between Mars and Uranus. So that's quite a peak in the month, and we'll be feeling both of those a few days to either side. Now, I've talked at great length about the Jupiter-Saturn square. I've got a separate video on that. I'll put that below because that also helps you personally. I'm referring in that video to how those planets fall in your chart personally. And I've also talked at length about how it may manifest in general, and in the last update too, which I'll put below. But essentially, this is the final opening square in this Jupiter-Saturn cycle, where we get to reassess where we are at versus the end of 2020 when we had the conjunction. So we could well be reassessing our beliefs now versus where they were then, whether our belief system about the world and how it operates are still valid. We may be reassessing how we feel about the way structures, Saturn, are set up in society, top-down structures. We may be reassessing those. And there will be very much part of our lives that feels like it's expanding, and another part of our life that feels it needs work. But the combination of these can be a really considered, measured, cautious expansion in our life. So it can work really well as a combination. The other aspect, as I say, on the 15th is the square between Mars and Uranus. So when these are both in fixed signs, which they are in Leo and Taurus, 29 degrees each of them. Remember, that's the anaretic degree. This is also falling on the ascendant of the US president, so there could be some developments there. We'll see. This is an aspect of sort of radical, sudden change that can often be quite disruptive, quite radical, sometimes even violent. It's the classic expression for seismic activity of all kinds. So that can be literal earthquakes, volcanoes. As I'm filming on the 9th, we have an incredible intensity of volcanic activity across the world. You're probably aware that Mount Etna is very active. Idaho, we've got a swarm of earthquakes there. We have the earthquake in Guatemala, Fuego, erupting very violently. We have the earthquake in Kilauea in Hawaii, extremely active. And just this morning, we had a 6.4 and a 6.3 earthquake in South America. But they are these large magnitude earthquakes of 6 plus are coming up pretty regularly now. So as anticipated at the beginning of the year, there is heightened seismic activity at this time for sure. So it can express in that way. It could also be something financial because Uranus is in Taurus, the sign of finance, money. This could be another sudden radical step towards digitization. It could work in that way, and it can work in several ways. So we will just observe and see what happens. But stay peaceful, because this is quite a kind of shocking aspect potentially. So stay calm, stay in peace. The more we can do that as a general principle, the easier life will be. Then on the 18th of June, we have the exact square between Jupiter and Neptune. And this is very different from the square between Jupiter and Saturn. This can be like a big bubble. It can be a big bubble of optimism, and it often affects stock markets in that way. It can be where you're overblowing something, but it can also expand our compassion, our love, our care for other people, that we want to go and help on the soup run, or help the homeless, or help with the dispossessed in some way. We feel more philanthropic, we feel more charitable. It can also suggest there's some big issue to do with water, the seas, the oceans in some way, big water, big waves. And it can also suggest this whole combination of Jupiter square Saturn, Neptune, a large degree of disillusionment coming into our global psyche, a sense of disillusionment about something, particularly something that was really begun at the end of 2020, which is when we had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the Capricorn solstice. So we will see how this unfolds, but potentially the Jupiter-Neptune aspect can be quite idealistic, it can be quite magical and mystical, and there's a feeling of, I want to move to a more perfect reality. And I think a lot of us feel that, quite frankly.